Good evening. My informal induction to circularity started in a journey which I had in Nainital. On the way back, that's about 10 years ago, on the way back, we were in a car, opened a packet of chips, finished it, and by impulse, threw it out of the window. So my younger son was sitting in the front seat. He asked the driver to stop. He got out of the car and stood outside, said, "Papa, please go pick it up." Now, obviously, it was quite embarrassing for me. I said, "Listen, kachra is better inside the car or outside the car?" So he said, "Without you picking that up, I am not going to get into the car." Then it struck me that I should have been teaching him this. Rather, it was a lesson learned the other way. Shamelessly went, picked up the packet of empty packet, carried it all the way to Delhi, and put it in the dustbin at home. Now, when you're talking about plastic circularity, I think we must first understand plastic as a material. You know, it started with the first patent which was given in 1917, where PVC was given a patent as the first plastic item. And look at the journey till almost 1982, when an artificial heart made of polyurethane was implanted in a human being. So plastic really has come a long way. Fundamentally, it has been the versatility and the durability of the material that has made it all pervasive in our life. And right from the time you wake up to the toothbrush, to the time you go to bed, where we put the alarm in our phones, which are mostly made of plastic, it is prevalent all through. However, when we look at plastic, I think an interesting point is that, like metals, all plastic are not the same. The durability, the recyclability of different plastics are different. But as consumers, we tend to mix all the plastic together as one, club it at one go and say, this is all plastic. Not really. I think this is the first understanding as consumers that people need to have. There are different types of plastic, and some are far more recyclable, repurposable than other plastic. And whenever we think of plastic or plastic waste, the first thing that comes is a lot of packaging. And packaging is where most plastic is used. Not really. Packaging contributes about 36% of the plastic consumption. And when you are thinking about shaming plastic, our mind will wander to the food packaging, right? We will think that a lot of this food packaging is actually waste. Is it really? I mean, look at it. 2 grams of plastic extends the shelf life by over 11 days. And if we had allowed that food to rot, that would possibly have created 5 times more CO2 than what has gone into generating that plastic. I come from Bisleri, one of the most trusted brands in the country, name synonymous with water. Now, a lot of people will be wondering why there are so many mineral water bottles in this country. Is it just a matter of convenience? Not really. There must be a consumer reason for it. I mean, look at those numbers. In the urban India, just about 47% of houses have water connections directly to their homes. And look at those districts which are suffering from acute water crisis, 250 out of 750. And 50% of the districts in this country have contaminated groundwater. Arsenic, fluorine, you name it, it's there. So people need safe drinking water. At the same time, it needs to be affordable in a country like India. Now, I'm not here to defend plastic. My job is to sell water. Now, when I look at a packaging material, what are the criteria which I use? The product, the packaging which I'm going to use have to be safe, without any chemical or physical interactions with my product. Functionally equivalent to whatever I'm using today, has to be cost effective, I mean, people come all the time, come to me saying, I got this, nice looking bamboo bottle in which you can market Bisleri tomorrow. Not scalable. So any idea we are talking about needs to be scalable in a country like India. And that is when that idea will work. And it has to be environmentally benign as compared to other options that I have. And let me elaborate this a little bit. There's always this worry that anything stored in PET or plastic is actually bad for health. In 2019, CFTRI of India did a comprehensive 2-year study to prove that PET packaging is absolutely safe for storing beverages. There are no phthalates, there are no endocrine disturbances, absolutely nothing. So you can trust this packaging medium as something which you can put your beverages and food. And you can see across the world, it is certified that plastic is good and safe for food packaging. Now, interestingly, whenever we think of plastic, we always feel that plastic possibly is the most evil substance on earth. Not really. Look at it. Look at those numbers. I think we need to be clear that the carbon footprint in the entire chain needs to be accounted for, right from processing, manufacturing, transportation, and recycling and decomposing. Look at every other alternative option. It's possibly double or triple of plastic. Unfortunately, there is no real substitute for plastic if you look at the total carbon footprint that any alternative is providing us today. And this is a reality. However, is it all rainbows and whistles for plastic? Not at all. This is what is staring at us in our face. There is a lot of plastic pollution, which is what post-use plastic is lying around in the country, polluting the land, the water bodies. Now, the interesting aspect as far as India is concerned, we have a very large garbage picker system, and almost 60% of plastic gets picked up. And if you look at PET, for example, which is what these water bottles are made of, 90%, in fact, the minister has made a statement in Lok Sabha, it is 92% of plastic PET gets picked up for recycling. And the per capita consumption as compared to the other countries are much lower. But still, I think it is a problem. And if you are looking at this problem to get addressed, it requires to go back to the two critical aspects of plastic as a material, which is durability and versatility. That the same plastic can be collected, repurposed, and reintroduced back into the consumption cycle. And that is when the true value of that material will derive. So if you're talking about the next revolution, then it just calls for not just recycling, but actually upcycling the product in the material loop. And that requires everybody to come together, all the stakeholders, the consumers, the trade, industry like us, the government. I think it's a collective effort which can make that difference. And let's start with the consumers, because in FMCG, we always start business with the consumer in mind. 80% of littering, what people say, is intentional or knowingly you are littering. So there needs to be an effort to moderate consumption. People should be satisfied with minimal packaging, maybe reuse packaging as much as possible, and even look at alternatives which can possibly reduce the requirement of plastic, and most importantly, change the behavior of disposal. Whenever we are talking to recyclers, the one big issue which comes up is, sir, we do not have the technology for sorting mixed waste. Plastic which has got mixed with any kind of dirt, food, it's impossible for them to process it. So that's a starting point. I mean, the solution really is in our mindset, because look at, we are the people who are very thrifty as a society. We keep the newspapers safe, right? A newspaper fetches us 8 rupees per kilo. The PET fetches you 15 rupees per kilo. But what do? Throw it out of our house at the first instance. So I think there is somewhere the value realization is the most important aspect, that used plastic is not waste, it is valuable, which can be reprocessed. And look at this entire landscape from about 12 to 14 rupees a kilo, which the garbage picker gets, to a 60 rupees at the end. It's a big value chain. And importantly, I think the second large point is really about circularity investments need to increase. Even today, it's a huge industry. You can see the number of people involved in it, 70 lakh plus, just in the PET reprocessing industry. And what is it going to be by 2030? A $10.2 billion industry. It's significant. A lot of us don't appreciate this, but we have one challenge. While the consumption is relatively uniform because the urbanization has been very democratic across the states, the problem that we have is 82% of recyclers are located in just 7 states of this country. Now, somebody in Orissa or in a Kerala wants to ship the material. The entire value-added reprocessing gets impacted because there is a significant transportation cost from those consuming states to the places where your recycling industry is located. Now, this is something which we need to address because otherwise the plastic in Orissa will lie in Orissa, it will lie in Kerala, it will lie in Assam, and we need to take collective cognizance and say, we need to put up those industries there. That is when the true circularity revolution can kind of happen. The third aspect, innovation, adding value always ensures that it will attract capital investments. You saw that at the final output level, it was about 60 rupees per kilo on PET. A couple of kilos go to make a t-shirt, which gets sold for about 800 to 2000 rupees, depending on the branding you put on that. That is true value addition possibility. Look at some of those shoes, they have branded it as ocean plastic. Adidas ocean plastic shoes are upwards of 16,000 rupees. How much PET goes into that? Possibly 150 rupees worth of PET. Look at that significant value addition. That's a kind of possibility in this industry. But we need to be innovative, and we need to make this entire process of recycling interesting. We don't have, look at that, t-shirts from recycled plastic. Those are costing upwards of 2,000 rupees. And I don't think there can be a better ambassador than the Prime Minister of the country wearing a jacket made out of PET bottles. So there is tremendous scope for value addition and getting that product back into the consumption cycle rather than, a lot of people think, what do I do with plastic? Mix it with bitumen and put it on the tar road. Absolutely criminal. It's like you are throwing your gold chain out of your window and saying, okay, iska purpose khatam ho gaya. I attended this party, now I don't require it anymore. Do we do that? Never. Interestingly, the government is doing a lot of stuff. The regulatory landscape has been changing right from 2016, the EPR rules. And the last one really is about the national green credits, which has been proposed now. Rewarding voluntary actions by individuals, farmer collectives, and corporates. You do anything which is going to benefit the environment, they're going to create a tradable platform where these credits are going to be enabled to be traded. So if I'm doing what is more than my requirement, I'm going to get those credits which I'll be able to trade in the platform. We are actually actively working with the government to create some of these things. And it's not just limited to plastic, it's limited to a variety of things which are going to be benign to the environment. Water conservation and a lot of other items. Under the Prime Minister's LIFE mission, there's going to be a big initiative by the government. I think it's been very thoughtfully done. And some of the initial drafts have already been released last week. Interestingly, there are a lot of global best practices. Now, some of those you can see are very developed countries, and we'll always reflect back and say, okay, it can work in a Norway and maybe in a Germany. But we are not at that stage of development. But you must look at a country like Bangladesh. They have not had plastic bags for over 15 years now. You cannot find even one plastic bag in entire Bangladesh. I used to work there as part of my responsibility at one point in time. I used to be amazed. A non-vegetarian country, people go out to buy fish every morning, and how do you manage? In jute bag. They carry their steel vessels and collect their meat and fish in steel vessels. So people adapt. Look at a country like Sri Lanka. You go to see the beaches in Sri Lanka, absolutely clean. And why is that? Because they have a mechanism where every shack is held accountable for the beach in front of him. And every 30 minutes, 1 hour, they ensure that they go to the beach and clean up their portion of that. Now, is Sri Lanka a richer country than us? No. So it doesn't matter. We can adopt some of these best practices and possibly put it into practice in our country. Now, that brings me to the last point. I think as a representative of the industry, we have an accountability as well to ensure that plastic circularity is moving into the next level. And let me share the Bisleri story. Our chairman has a vision that used plastic is valuable and must be recycled, and we were one of the first companies in India to import a plastic recycling machine from Japan in the early 90s, where nobody in this country would have talked about any commitment of circularity, EPR, nothing was there. And we were actually working towards creating value-added products. We were also one of the first companies to become plastic neutral, as I would call it, that you are not putting more plastic than what you recycle. In fact, we recycle about 104% of our plastic, and last year numbers have just been released. It's 107%. And we also replenish water to an extent of 108% through rainwater harvesting, taking care of restoring water bodies, and also putting in check dams in the rural areas. So there's a lot of work which we do in this, proudly do in this area. And I remember when the first mandate came that if you are an FMCG company or any company using plastic packaging, 70% you must recycle. And we had a discussion internally and said, why not 100%? And that's how we ended up here. And if you look at the 3 Rs, this is what we've been doing: reduce our plastic consumption by 10%. And our focus on reusing of plastic has made that the 20-liter business almost a 30% of our overall business, because we believe that that jar can be used multiple times. And you have seen our recycling numbers. We firmly believe that as a company, that we have a role to educate consumers about the value of used plastic, and also educate them about cleaning it and segregating it before disposing. And can we do something as a corporate to ensure that plastic is picked up and sent straight to recycling rather than allowing it to go into landfills? And we have a program called Bottles for Change. This is our initiative. If we have an app which you can download and you have plastic lying at home, you can possibly just alert us. We will send our vehicle or our agent's vehicle to come and pick it up, and that goes into the recycler directly without ending up in the landfill. And that's a big initiative that we have rolled out since the last 4 years. We have reached about 600,000 people so far in terms of Connect. The program is active in about 13 municipal corporations, the latest one being Chandigarh. So we have all the metros, including Hyderabad, and going to Chandigarh now. We also have a village model of this operating in Gujarat. 4 villages where we are trying to make them plastic waste free, not plastic free. Plastic is part of our integral life. People will use plastic, but plastic waste free villages. And some of the largest educational institutions who have students more than 1 lakh and 2 lakhs, they are part of this initiative. and you can see some of the largest corporates in the country, the hotels and restaurants, our people go and educate them and tell them that used plastic is valuable, keep it, clean it, and provide it to the housekeeping people, we'll come and pick it up. Or we'll provide enabling mechanisms to pick it up.
चलो, घर से
This captures our initiatives.
तू एक बूंद दिल जिंदगी है तू खुश सी मुस्कान है हर जगह है तू तू डगमग पंख है ऊंची उड़ान है तू सारा जहां है तू जा मंजिल के परे ओ पागल बुलबुले चल बचपन के तले वही तेरा घर मिले.
So to sum up, the next big wave in circularity calls for a collective effort, both from consumers who need to moderate consumption and promote reuse. And most importantly, a significant behavior change that I should not be littering, I should be cleaning up my used plastic and figure out a way of reaching it to recycler directly. Trade and establishments, I would always remember the story of Sri Lankan beaches. The trade and establishments need to take accountability for used plastic which is consumed on premise. And industry, I think there's a lot of work that can be done in terms of technology, in terms of looking at harmonizing the packaging. For example, in Japan, they have beverage bottles which are made completely of PET, including the label and the cap. Now, obviously, it's a little more expensive, but from a recycling standpoint, there is nothing to do, just put that into the recycling thing and it will just go in. And also innovations for higher value repurposing. From the government, I explained that we need to support setting up circularity infrastructure in those states where we found that we don't have really recycling infrastructure or reprocessing infrastructure. That's a big ask. And the last one is catch them young, make circularity part of the curriculum for kids, because I learned my lesson from my son. I'm sure there are a lot of young kids who can teach their parents who possibly missed out this learning in the past. Thank you, and thank you Anurag and Business World for this opportunity for me to be here as part of this wonderful conference. Thank you.